Good evening, Dolphins fans. Welcome to another episode of On the FinSide here with Kat and Paul. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Spreaker, iTunes, YouTube, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. Check out our merch store on thefinside.threadless.com. We are finished with our week one game. The Miami Dolphins lose to the New England Patriots by the score of 21-11 in a game very much on the ground. The Patriots dominate this game with their run offense, 42 carries, 217 yards on the ground, controlled a lot of that game there. And, when I look at this here, Paul, we were talking about how we didn't think that Cam Newton was going to be able to beat the Dolphins in the air, and he didn't. I mean, he only had 155 yards passing. 42 rushes, 217 yards on the ground by the Patriots offense, and only 19 passes attempted.
This is true. And he did look better on the ground than I expected him to, but I was really impressed how overall simple the Patriots offense was, but effective. Now, the thing I will say is, as it stands right now, given the fact that they didn't have a preseason, for one, I think it helped the Patriots a little bit because most people didn't fully know what to expect as far as that went. Now, I do think Miami, and I'm not making excuses here, we had a lot of new starters on defense today. And this was the first game action. There were pluses, there were minuses. I think they played a little far off the ball, something that I'm a little worried about given history. But end of the day, I think as they gel, I'm excited about this defense, and there were a lot of things to be excited about with it, despite the fact that they got gashed on the ground today.
Yeah, given that Cam Newton went 15 for 19 for 155 yards, at the end of the day, it's still 155 yards passing only. But what I'm disappointed in is that, look, the Dolphins drafted Christian Wilkins in the first round a year ago, and Wilkins had a sack. He had a pass deflected. They've also got Davin Gotcha. They've also got Raekwon Davis that they spent a second round pick on. They traded Raekwon McMillan as that real key linebacker who can stuff the run inside. And given those personnel moves they made, I'm a little bit disappointed that they come out in the first game and get gashed for 217 yards on the ground.
And that's why I was a little bit extra surprised that Strobridge was inactive, because he's a guy that can rush the passer, but really excels as far as run stuffing as well. And you can't have all pass rushers on that D front. You just can't. And our linebackers need to play a little better. I expected a little more of Van Noy. And really one little tweaky note, but Grugier Hill tried to punch the ball out when Cam Newton's forward progress wasn't even close to stopped yet. And I do get that when somebody stood up, you do want to try to get the ball away, and he was trying to make something happen. But when he's still driving forward, when he's wrapped up, you got to help bring the guy to the ground.
Yeah. Yeah, Cam Newton dragged several Dolphins defenders to the 2-yard line on that play, and it turned out to be a very big play. I mean, it was a 4th and 1, and it seemed like the Patriots were getting those 3rd and 3s, those 4th and 1s all game long. And I completely agree with you there too, that Kyle Van Noy did not look good in his first game. He didn't look good off the edge. He didn't look good in the middle. So, it's only one game. I'm more likely to take what he's done with the Patriots the last 2 years seriously over just one game here in Foxborough. But yeah, not a very good first showing by Kyle Van Noy.
Yeah, and Kat, I want to jump into something actually that is on my mind from the game that one of our listeners just brought up in the chat room. Hunter brought up that he thinks our pass blocking was quite good, but our run blocking was meh, even though Miles played solid. I think both sides of our blocking today, our line was not an issue in this game. Ryan Fitzpatrick had almost all day on most of his throws back there. And if you look at Gaskins and you look at Breda, they both averaged about 4.5 yards per carry. I think our sample size in the run game was a little too low. And I really, really, really think that the pass blocking is great. Robert Hunt got in there as an extra blocker on that touchdown by Jordan Howard on inexplicably just trying to run the ball up the gut and smash it in there over and over again. And luckily it finally worked. But in reality, I was very, very encouraged by our offensive line. I expected a lot more growing pains from the O line in this one. And I know we'll get to it, but as far as the pass blocking goes, I didn't have a problem with that. I had more of a problem with I thought Fitzpatrick looked lost in an offense that he's supposed to know very well.
Yeah, a couple things there is, yeah, overall, other than the second Dolphins drive of the game, I was very impressed with the pass protection. And, I've said many over and over again, I did not like the pick of Austin Jackson there in the middle of the first round. I was very impressed with him today. So that's something to build on. And I was also very impressed at right guard with Solomon Kindley. I don't think they were destroying people, but they wanted to add size on that offensive line. They certainly did that. And I thought they certainly did their job here today as well. But as far as the running game, none of us would have thought that Myles Gaskin would have come out of this first game with the most carries among Dolphins running backs. And when you looked at the transition from Jordan Howard, who had 8 carries for 7 yards, to Myles Gaskin, who had 9 carries for 40 yards, I didn't think Gaskin had many more holes to run through.
No, I was decidedly unimpressed with Jordan Howard in the limited action that he got today. But I will say too, it's the O line didn't, or I'm sorry, the running game didn't really get a chance to get kick started, and they got away from it pretty early and often. I mean, you take away those 3 goal line rushes, and you're looking at 24 carries across the course of a game. That even when they tightened the score back up, they stopped running the ball, despite Fitzpatrick's struggles at time, both to see the open receiver and granted, I know 2 of the interceptions weren't fully his fault, but that's not even what I'm referring to. There were plenty of times that there was a wide open receiver, a better option that he just completely missed. There was a play where Grant came streaking across the field, wide open the whole way, and by the time that Fitzpatrick went to him, now he was hedged in. I mean, there were a lot of balls that were contested that really weren't the receiver's fault that they were contested, and there was a lot with that. I mean, it's me, Cat, that I want Tua to rest it up on the bench a little bit, but I think it was beginning of the third quarter. I shot you a message during the game and basically said, if Fitzpatrick doesn't look any better here in the start of the third quarter, maybe it's Tua time. And I wasn't
Yeah,
against the
yeah.
idea.
Yeah, and it's I still agree with what you said before, where when we were talking a few weeks ago, where Tua is kind of your ace in the hole for a little bit later in the year. I'm willing to give Fitzpatrick another couple of games. We know Tua is the future. But overall, you look at the stat sheet: 20 for 30, 191 yards, 3 interceptions. And yeah, to your point, of those 3 interceptions, one of them was not his fault. Preston Williams fell down. That was his first interception. Not on him at all. The second one was embarrassing, the one by Adrian Phillips. I mean, he just flat out did not see the defender. And it was a big play there too, because the Dolphins were down 7-3 at that point. And then the third one, the Dolphins are down 21-11 with about 3 minutes left, but it looks like they're going to put some points on the board with 3 timeouts left. And he throws a contested ball up there from Mike Gesicki. Yeah, it was probably pass interference, but then again, that's what happens when you throw contested balls throughout the entire game.
It is, and I'm willing to give Fitz a little bit more rope to bring it back. But if we start looking at an 0-2, 0-3 start, and he's not looking any better, and you've got this young top 5 draft pick that's supposedly healthy now, sitting there in the wings, it's going to be a big struggle for me not to be ready to make that move. And I want to go back to one thing that you mentioned before as well, not Fitz related, but going back to the O line. I was very, very, very encouraged watching Solomon Kindley today. I thought he got to the second level well. There were times where I saw him push a player 4 or 5 yards downfield on a play. And we haven't seen that from that right guard position in a long, long, long time. And you know me, I'm attached to those big, meaty offensive linemen that throw people around and wear number 66.
Uh,
There's a good
yes,
history of that in this franchise.
that's right. There was for at least 2 years with Jamie Nails. I mean, and Solomon Kinley actually, if he puts together two decent starts, he's probably going to be the best right guard for the Dolphins in the last 20 years. I mean, with with how badly, I mean, John Jerry is probably the best one over the last 2 decades, which is shocking.
Hey, Jamie was still in the last 2 decades.
No, Jamie was a left guard though. I'm
Oh, that's
talking about
right. Shit. Yeah.
right. This because the right guard was Todd Perry that year. I remember, and then it was Heath Irwin and geez, anyway. But yeah, I'm really encouraged, and I thought Solomon Kinley. That was another pick I didn't like in the fourth round. I thought that he was a giant. I thought he could not handle speed rushers to save his life there at Georgia, but he looked very good today. And I think he gets very good push. And then in pass protection, he has such a wide base that it's hard for any defensive lineman to get penetration.
See, Kat, this is one of the few areas where I think I'm going to finally say something because I'm just thinking about it. As far as the offensive guard position goes, I'm pretty good at that one. You got to listen to me. So if I tell you when I watch Solomon Kinley, and now I'll defer to you on a lot of the stat stuff, but I think at the guard position, when we look at Eric Flowers playing super well at guard, we look at Solomon Kinley and some of the other ones I've talked about in the past. I think I'm going to finally just lay claim to the guard position at this point. I might not be right on everything, but the guard position. You remember, I was more excited about Kinley than Hunt when we were doing our draft coverage.
Yeah, in fact, our first year doing the show, you wanted Eric Flowers in that draft. I think
to play guard, and everyone thought I was crazy.
2015 to play guard, yeah, and now here we are a few years later, and I think he did a very good job in this game. He had a bullshit call against him, there, no doubt about it. I don't even know what that was, but overall he had a very good game. I'll look at the film in a little bit more detail here tomorrow. But I want to go back to a point that you said too, is that you were willing to put Tua in there in the second half, or you were at least considering the thought there. So the Dolphins play the Bills next week. One of the best defenses in the league as well. They won today against the New York Jets. Let's say Ryan Fitzpatrick goes out there and throws 2 more interceptions. I personally think that would be the perfect time heading into week 3 against the Jaguars to maybe put 2 in the lineup.
It might, but here's part of my thing with that too. It's if the game is kind of out of reach anyhow because Fitz is just bombing it to other people, and Sarah in chat there, I'm not going to acknowledge that one. Not at all. Nope. But it's a very good situation to put Tua in with the pressure off for him. It's if he can come in with the pressure off and just sling it and see what he can do in real action against NFL talent with a pretty decent secondary. I love that idea. Try to get him a little confidence and rolling into the following week. It's at that point it can't hurt, and it's against a team that hasn't prepped for him.
Yeah, fair enough. And regardless of when it happens, the timing has to be right for Tua to be in. It's part of me likes the idea that he could go in if Fitzpatrick doesn't have a good showing next week, that he could go in week 3 against the Jaguars. Part of me still likes the idea of what you had said a few weeks ago, where he goes in week 10 against the Jets, has that game against an opponent you really should beat, then the bye week, then you play the Jets again, then you play the Bengals at home. That's a pretty good streak, and now you can get some momentum built up there.
That is the ideal scenario for me. It really is. But end of the day, it's still football, and not everything's going to go the way you plan on and the way you want it to. And that's where I think this is a team, even after today. I know some of our listeners, I know some of the fans out there are going to be discouraged after today. And I get it. I really do. But there was a lot to be encouraged about, even beyond the offensive line. There was a lot that I think could gel together. There's a lot I think this coaching staff can fix. I'm not willing to throw the season away. And in a 16 game season, every game is important. And that's where, if Fitzpatrick isn't getting it done, even if you're going to go back to Fitzpatrick the following week, I think it's an ideal year to be able to throw Tua in, because even if the fans are screaming for him, if he does well, they're not going to be at many of these games sitting there screaming for him every time Fitzpatrick takes the field. And that's critical here, in the fact that Fitz isn't going to have to deal with that aspect of it. So even if you throw Tua in and the social media is out there saying this and that, hey, at least it's not during a game where it's going to derail him.
Yeah, and one thing you said there, I am very big on when you put Tua in, he is your quarterback until he proves that he's not your franchise quarterback. I don't want to put him in, take him out, put him in, take him out. I think that's where I'm not saying you're saying that, but that's where I think you ruin a quarterback, and that's what I don't want to see happen to Tua.
Yeah, no, I'm talking more almost garbage time. Chance to throw a miracle and play, but you're kind of out of a game realistically. Just a chance to get a little bit of game experience, not to take over the starting role. You come out after the game and say, Ryan Fitzpatrick is still our starter for the foreseeable future. We just wanted to, things weren't working out today. We wanted to see what we had in Tua. And really, you look at history with Ryan Fitzpatrick, you might be waiting to catch lightning in a bottle again for a few weeks, and he just isn't there. He's in his Fitz tragic, not Fitz magic mode.
If it's tragic, that was certainly the case here today. Cam Newton on the other side of the ball. I've got to say that, yes, I'm very disappointed with when you look at the money the Dolphins spent on Emmanuel Ogbah and Shaq Lawson, and drafted Raekwon Davis in the second round, traded Raekwon McMillan, drafted Christian Wilkins in the first round here last year, and still could not contain Cam Newton, even though they should have known what the Patriots were going to be looking to do here in week one. But I'll also say too, Cam Newton's 32 years old. He had 15 carries for 75 yards today. You project 15 carries to an entire year. That's 250 or 240 carries for the entire year. I don't think they're going to be able to sustain that.
No, because he's going to get hurt before he hits 240.
He's going to get hurt before he hits 115, I think.
Yeah, no, I was almost waiting for it today, to be honest with you. Kat, looking at our chat right now, there's a lot of folks that want to talk a little bit about Jerome Baker here. And I know I don't want to get too far ahead of things, but
no, go ahead. Go right.
What are your thoughts on Baker's play and having him at middle linebacker? I know he had a dumb penalty at one point, but overall,
I think he's extremely hit or miss, and we saw that today. He had a sack, which was a very big one that took the Patriots out of field goal range, and the play that he had today was huge. I mean, in the second half, the Patriots at the beginning of the second half, the Patriots were up 7-3. They then had a 75-yard touchdown drive, then had a 60-plus yard drive on the next one that was taken away by Jerome Baker punching the ball out from wide receiver N'Keal Harry. So you have a linebacker that's fast enough and athletic enough to chase down a receiver and punch the ball out to the back of the end zone. It would have been 21-3 and the game would have been over at that point. But he also had 2 personal foul penalties, and he's somebody also who you can run downhill at. And we saw a lot of that too. So the question is, and it's kind of the same thing with like Deion Jones with the Falcons, is like, you've got to take the good with the bad. He's got to be able to cover a lot of ground. He's like a big safety out there, but he's also temperamental and he's also undersized.
Yeah. I mean, he's temperamental, he's undersized, but he also can be a rocket on given plays. And to me, his good plays overall outweigh the bad. That one personal on the goal line, whatever, and the late hit out of bounds. I'm gonna give him a pass on for now. The fact that he was out there in double digit tackles today, flying all over the field, the emotion he brings to the players around him. It's you almost bring in guys like Rouge Hill and Van Noy to be those solid linebackers around him to make up the difference on the negative plays. And I don't feel that they were today because the positives, those lightning plays, are usually big game making, game breaking plays on the positive side of the ball if you've got the players around him to make up on those other couple of plays a game. And
Mhm.
it's for me, I would not pull Baker out of this lineup. I know a few of our listeners would like to. I totally get it. I and I'm going to tell you guys right now, just because other folks in the chat have that opinion, you don't need to tell them to learn how to watch film because they're of a different opinion.
I appreciate everyone in the chat. I'm not seeing people in that chat because I'm really computer illiterate, to be quite honest with you. So sorry to everybody there. No, I don't think you can pull Baker out of anything. I mean,
Yeah.
he's too fast. He can do in a pass dominated league. He can do a lot of things very, very well. This was not a great matchup for Jerome Baker with a team in Cam Newton where you have no film on running the ball downhill consistently. I can understand why he struggled today. And he had two stupid penalties too. I mean, so he's got to clean those things up. But overall, I think the good outweighs the bad. Um, on Looking at the rest of the defensive side of the ball, and I think it's kind of the same thing with Emmanuel Ogba and Shaq Lawson, where this was not their week. I mean, as far as they did their best to have containment, but that's really all that they can do out there. They're going to be a couple of weeks where they pin their ears back and they're going to be able to actually get the quarterback. We saw that last year when Agba, through 9 games with the Chiefs, had 6 sacks. Shaq Lawson had 8.5 for the year with the Bills. They're going to get those opportunities. This was not really the opportunity to do that from the defensive end position.
No, it wasn't. I will say there was a semblance of a pass rush at times today, which I love to see. I don't think enough of it came from the DN position, but at the same time, I'm going to give them a pass for right now. It's they were holding their ground, trying to read option plays and the run plays. They didn't do the best job of it. Hopefully, they get that cleaned up because they're going to see a lot of that this year. Looking at the quarterbacks that they're going to match up against.
Yeah, that's for sure. So, Paul, let's take a look very quickly at our grades here. We used to build our entire show around these grades, but we're going to go through them a lot more quickly here this year. So, I'm going to throw it to you for the quarterback position.
D, solid D. It's there were receivers running open. The timing was off. Fitz looked lost in this offense. There was some good at times, but too many interceptions in critical moments, especially, granted, Preston Williams fell down, you name it, but end of the day, we need Fitz to be that infectious guy that knows the offense. He's supposed to know the offense front to back, and he just didn't get it done out there.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with a D plus for a lot of reasons you said there. One reason I'll throw the plus on there is because they did lose Devontae Parker here at halftime. He had 4 catches for 47 yards, and then he went down with an injury. But the 3 interceptions on 30 attempts, one was his fault. One was, one was embarrassing. One was not his fault, and the other one was probably pass interference. But down in the end zone, you kind of get what you deserve when you keep throwing the ball in traffic like that. So I'm going to go with a D plus at the running back spot. If you take Jordan Howard out of the equation, Matt Breida and Myles Gaskin, combined for over 4 yards a carry, and that's probably the best we've seen out of a running back for a while. I think Gaskin showed a lot. I liked how they creatively blended in all 4 running backs. I hope we see a lot more of that. But Jordan Howard's yards per carry certainly bring everything down here. So, overall, I'm going to go with a C plus.
I'm gonna go with a B minus, as you said, for a lot of the reasons that you listed, and I really liked what I saw to Miles Gaskin, another guy that I really liked when they drafted him, and a lot of people thought made no sense, and I really like the development I saw from him from last season to this season. I will say it's tough to grade the running back position harshly because it felt like an incomplete almost today. But again, it's a B minus. I thought they were effective. I thought they found the holes, and you've got guys like Gaskin and Breda. They are always one move away from taking it to the house, and I'm excited because they're gonna break those at some point this season.
Yeah, I have so little respect for the running back position in the NFL in general that I mean, pretty much we make the same comment every week with the running backs is it didn't matter if it was Kenny Drake, Jay Ajayi, Miles Gaskin, Laird. It's like if it's blocked up, they're going to get the yardage, and that's pretty much how I feel about all the running backs. So, but I did like how they creatively Jan Gailey blended those four running backs into the offense. So I'm going to throw it back to you for the receiver position.
I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go with probably a C minus here. It's I thought Gesicki disappeared at times, even though he had a couple of good catches. We had a few drops today that really shouldn't have been. I know they were having to fight for contested balls a lot, whether it was separation or um, a bad pass. I know there were receivers open, but they weren't getting the attention. And unfortunately, Preston Williams falling down multiple times, you know, being the biggest guys out there and not making the play when push comes to shove. And I won't discount Devontae. He was off to a good start before he got hurt.
Yeah, Devontae was off to a good start before he got hurt. 4 catches, 47 yards, and he was taking it to Gilmore again in the first half. And then he got hurt, which is really a shame. And he was coming off a week where he was hurt as well. So hopefully this is not the old Devontae Parker and his injuries coming back into play. Preston Williams, yeah, 2 catches for 41 yards, but he drew 2 big pass interference penalties as well. So that's good. I was not impressed with Jakeem Grant. I was not impressed with Isaiah Ford. Mike Gesicki, yeah, he had 3 catches for 30 yards. One of them was a big one, but other than that, you know, not much there. So hopefully we see more here out of Gesicki um, throughout the rest of the time. But here's my one thing: I don't want to hear a damn thing about Jakeem Grant until he actually does something.
You mean my boy Jakeem Grant, the one I
Yeah,
love?
yeah, the guy that's been here for 7 years and has caught 20 passes and gets a punt return and runs 7 yards behind him. I
It has
mean,
not been. It has not been 7 years
no,
already.
it's been 2016 he was drafted.
I was gonna say it's been
So
four. Okay.
yeah, so the torn ACL is coming around the corner somewhere, and
Oh, we'll see. I mean, he is electric when he gets the opportunity. I was frustrated with that punt return today. I was also very frustrated at the receiver and running back position because I know we talked about this on our pregame show. The fact that both Malcolm Perry and Lynn Bowden were inactive today. This felt like a game where there was a possibility that you needed to have some creativity, and on a day where the offense was more bland than I've seen it in a while, it would have been a
yeah,
very welcome addition, even if it was for 4 or 5 plays, to have those guys out there.
one role I like Jakeem Grant in is when he for 3-4 plays a game, there's that end around or that fake end around to him because I think that starts to open things up a little bit. O'Shea was doing that a lot last year. We'll see if Ryan Fitzpat or excuse me if Chan Gailey is going to do the same thing there. Along,
Before we move on, you just reminded me. It pissed me off so much in the third quarter. I'm sitting there screaming for Jakeem Grant to get that reverse play or a shovel pass coming running behind the line, something to get out into space and create something exciting and a positive play. And then the very next series, the Pats did it with frickin' Edelman for 23 yards, and I'm like,
yep,
that's what I wanted them to
that's the
just do with
play.
Grant. That's all we. I mean, if that's all he does, 3 to 5 plays a game, and they throw a couple bombs and see if he catches one, I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, and that is, I don't know why teams don't do that. I'm watching the Rams game in the back. The Rams do that 3 or 4 times a game, and I think that every team should do that if they have wide receivers who have the speed to get out to the perimeter on those end arounds. So Jakeem Grant is certainly familiar with that play, so we'll look out for that here throughout the rest of the year. But right now, every year I keep hearing, "Oh, this is Jakeem Grant's year. This is Jakeem Grant's year," and never is. So hopefully that changes.
Hey, Parker took 7 years to break out, so
That's for sure.
and he was
Um,
injury prone too.
yeah, he was not injury prone for 7 games last year of his entire career. So, but he also led the AFC in receiving yards. So yeah,
Oh
we'll
wow.
we'll we'll certainly keep that in mind.
Let's go to the O
Offensive
line.
offensive line, Paul. You know, like I said before, Austin Jackson, I didn't like the pick originally,
Me either.
and that, and then yeah, you didn't either. I hated it way more. I was saying for months heading up, and then on the second drive of the game, I saw him get his ass kicked by somebody. I'll take a closer look at the film here tomorrow, but then after that, I thought he did a heck of a job, and he looks the part. He's 6'5", 320 pounds. He's got that natural knee bend. I was excited about him today, and I can't believe I'd ever say that. I thought Eric Flowers also did a good job. Ted Karras, not too impressed by. Um, Kindley, very encouraged by, and you didn't hear anything about from Jesse Davis, which is also a good thing at the right tackle spot. So um, I wasn't crazy about the run blocking. They didn't spring a whole heck of a lot. Because of that, I'm going to give them just a B, but probably an A minus for pass protection and around a C for run blocking.
I'm going to give him an A minus here. It's I was very very encouraged, especially from a unit that we both almost expected to have the most struggles going into this game, and really they were the most reliable unit on the field throughout the entirety of it, from opening starting whistle to the final whistle when Cam Newton tried to pick a fight with everybody. But it's they were absolutely solid. I think the run blocking will come because they're more talented at that across the board. And like you pointed out, Ted Karras was almost a weak link today. We'll see how it continues in the future. But I was very, very, very encouraged between Flowers, Austin Jackson, Solomon Kinley, and I hate to admit it, and Ball Game's going to love hearing this in our chat here, Jesse Davis, and even Robert Hunt when he came in as an extra blocker on the goal line.
Yeah, I mean, I like that, and I've always said this about offensive line. It's not about how often you win; it's about how infrequently that you lose. And I didn't feel like they lost very much today, and that's the first time in a while that I've graded the offensive line at a B, and you've graded them at an A minus at first glance. So that's certainly encouraging. On the defensive side of the ball, this is where it can get ugly here with the front seven. 217 yards on the ground from the New England Patriots, and that's really what dictated the game. It was not a great game from a lot of these guys. I mean, I thought Kyle Van Noy had a really bad game. We didn't hear much about Emmanuel Ogbah and Shaq Lawson. They didn't match up very well with the the Patriots and the downhill running, largely with Cam Newton that they had, but still not good enough. Christian Wilkins had a sack. He also had a pass defended. He made some plays in the backfield. So did Davin Gotcha. Good for them. But this is what dictated the game, and because of that, I'm going to go with a D plus for them.
I'm going to go with a C minus. It was part of what dictated the game, but to me, it's still the 3 interceptions on offense that cost them the game. It's the linebackers need to do a better job of defending against these mobile quarterbacks. A lot of Cam Newton's runs weren't even designed runs today. Some of his most effective ones, they were ones where everybody was covered and he just took off. And because there was a lane sitting there open, and as a linebacker, you have to be able to identify that lane being there. And they weren't doing that. I thought Jerome Baker, as much as some people in our chat may not agree, had a pretty good game overall today with a few things to clean up. But Van Noy, he looked like hot buttered ass today. And Grugier Hill, I appreciate the effort trying to punch the ball out, but end of the day, you got to make sure you stop him first and foremost on those type of plays. So for me, I'm going to go with that C minus on that one.
Yeah, and again, I'll say it again. I do not agree with the decision to trade Raekwon McMillan, even though he was a free agent after the 2020 season. I think it would have made a huge difference if he were on the field today, because that defense lacked some bite in the run defense department, and McMillan provided that. On the secondary, you know, no complaints here. It was great to see everybody back on the field. Byron Jones, Xavier Howard, no complaints there. Bobby McCain had a great play early in the game when Julian Edelman was wide open, punched the ball out. Eric Rowe was his usual solid self. Noah Igbenogany, not a good game from him, that's for sure. He took a lot of wrong angles. He was picked on a lot. But then again, we're talking about somebody who is 20 years old, was the youngest player in Dolphins history to take the field today at not even 21. But still not a great performance there. But overall for the secondary, I've got no problems there. I'm going to go with a B plus.
I'm going to echo you on the B plus here. I thought they did a very effective job overall. I'm a little worried because I saw a little too much cushion at times, especially from a lackluster receiving core. And there were times that there were receivers running a little too open. I also liked what I saw out of Brandon Jones in limited action today. I thought he did well when he got in there, and I think he was leading the team in tackles at one point early in the game.
Yeah, and speaking of bullshit penalties, yeah, Brandon Jones also got a 15-yard roughing the passer. That was certainly not a roughing the passer. So yeah, he's also somebody that looks the part. And you're right, Paul. Jerome Baker had 16 tackles, led the team today. Brandon Jones was second with 10. So kudos to him in his first NFL game. And again, with Brandon Jones, I don't know if a lot of people know about this, but after he got injured at Texas last year, he when he was meeting with teams, he started sending how he would play each and every team in the NFL. He sent a playbook to them for. I'm not sure the exact story. I completely messed it up.
It was he basically took and broke down every play of those games, what his role would have been, and what his read would have been on those plays for entire game. Like I think it was for like 5 or 6 games for each team from the previous season. He basically broke down the film, what his role would have been, and how he would have played it, and read it, which I thought was really cool.
You said it way better than me, Paul. I'm gonna kick it back to you for the special teams to round it out.
Oh, Jakeem, I tried to defend you once already, and then you had to do that on the punt return. I was really hoping he'd get a chance to return another punt there. Unfortunately, he did not, so he got stuck with -3 yards returning punts today. I thought our that aside, Jason Sanders did well today. I'm pretty sure his our first field goal got partially blocked, and he still boomed it for 46 yards. He basically kicked every kickoff out of the damn stadium today, and I thought Matt Hawk did well. Would have been nice if his bounce would have stayed on the field of play. But Jakeem Grant's punt return aside, which was almost catastrophic, I can give this unit a B based on Sanders, based on Hawk, with Jakeem dragging that grade down here.
Yeah, that's exactly what I had too. I thought Hawk did a good job. Jason Sanders hit the only field goal that he had to make the game 7-3. Jakeem Grant had a really bad punt return, but it was only one punt return, so it wasn't like he had 2 fumbles on the day. So we can let that go. I'm just waiting for Jakeem Grant to do something bigger that we always keep hearing about in training camp. That's my only point with him. So Paul, your player of the game, and who is the player that you're putting on the Coke bus? And by Coke bus, what we mean is if somebody had to get on a bus, yeah, you're better at explaining this than I am too.
Look, the Coke bus is something for our new listeners that came about a few seasons ago when Adam Gase seemed to stick with players long after they showed that they had no business on a roster, let alone the field. And what it was a mild encouragement to local police in the Miami-Dade area to plant bottles of Coca-Cola in their vehicle when they pull them over and take them for a little ride every Saturday evening or Sunday morning, depending on if it was a home game or Friday evening or uh, if it was an away game. But just Coca-Cola, the product made from the soda company, in their vehicle because no one's allowed to have that in their vehicle. I'll go
Fair
leave it at that.
enough. Fair enough. So given that, who is your Coke Bus player of the game?
Fitz easily fits, 100% fits. I
Mhm.
do love Fitz. I think he's going to bounce back. I wanted to throw somebody like Van Noy on the Coke bus, but I just couldn't in good conscience, given the fact that as bad as Van Noy was today, as bad as some of the other folks were at times, what really, really cost his team were those three interceptions. They were just they were the death knell for this team. Despite everything else, this team was in that game today, and, and Fitz took them back out of it by hitting Patriots players in the chest.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And it, at worst, a quarterback should be elevating the performance of his team around him. And even if you ignore the stat sheet and the three interceptions, he certainly didn't do that. I'm going to go with Kyle Van Noy. Not a very good first game from him. I do think he'll have a very good impact on this team, but this was not the game for him to do that. My player of the game, I can't believe I'm saying this in game one, but I'm going to say Austin Jackson. I was impressed with him in game one. I hope I don't come back to take that back tomorrow morning when I go in more detail looking at the film on him. But I liked what I saw. I mean, I thought he bounced back very well after a second drive where he got some pressures put on him. But after that, I thought he very much looked the part.
And I'm gonna stick with you on this. There were a few guys that we could have gone with here for my player of the game. I flirted with the idea of Christian Wilkins, who really should have been credited with 2 sacks, but he was only credited with one, and looked dominating at times, especially responding early on in this one, helping keep the Dolphins in it. I like the play of Jerome Baker, but his mistakes didn't get it done. At the end of the day, because of the struggles of the unit and because of something you already outlined earlier in this episode, the fact that Solomon Kinley in his first real NFL action was not just solid, but looked the part of a long-term starter that we're already encouraged is probably one of the best guards we've seen on this team since Jamie Nails, the best right guard we've seen on this team in 2 decades. In his first NFL action is huge, especially when that's going to be the blind side when Tua eventually takes over for Fitzpatrick. So Solomon Kinley gets it, and a big smile for me seeing a big 66 knocking people around on that field.
Yeah, and he may have a big test next week against Ed Oliver for the Buffalo Bills if he ends up going up against him. That'll do it there for our breakdown of the Miami Dolphins loss to the New England Patriots. They lose 21-11. Certainly a disappointing loss. One game down, 15 games to go. You can follow Paul and I on Facebook, Twitter, Spreaker, iTunes, YouTube, iHeartRadio, and on Spotify. I'm Brian Cat NFL. Paul is fanatic_pick. And if it's not on the right side and it's not on the left side, it is on the fin side.